Early to the game, it turned out we weren't. As far as misconceptions about industrial AI, I see everything. This Skynet, and like, it's not Skynet. We're so far from that. Generative AI is exciting, very cool. It's very new, and there's some risks in terms of implementing it on the plant floor because now everyone wanted to be talking about industrial AI. AGI has always been 10 years away. It's kind of like nuclear fusion. We're not even using LLMs. So no, this is a whole different thing. It's the number one question I get. Are you putting people out of work?
Most people think manufacturing's dirty, boring, or dying. They're dead wrong. This is Manufacturing Runs the World. We're here to fix the misconceptions, teaching the next generation how modern manufacturing really works and why it matters more than ever.
So cool. Why don't you tell me a little bit about yourself? I see you've been at your company now for quite some time. So
Yeah. 25 years at Robusys. And so are you familiar with Robusys at all?
just briefly viewing the website.
Okay. So OT system integrator, been around this is year 36. And so started out as a typical control system integrator in the 80s and 90s. And then around late 90s, early 2000s, really started to move into level 3, the information solution space within that plant floor. So that's when I started. And so, we were doing custom MESs because you couldn't just go out and buy an MES like you can now. And we were doing a lot of historian implementations. And this is back in the day when you were still explaining to a customer what a historian was. Why would I need this thing? Why am I spending this, licensing on this? Kind of worked my way up through the organization. Got a CS background, so I was coding, and then moved into managing those projects, and then moved into managing team of developers. And then in 2019, we hit our 30-year anniversary here at Robusys. We really said, okay, look, like we've seen the writing on the wall in the traditional control system, PLC programming, ladder logic. A lot of that's become a commodity. Now, again, this is 2019 before ChatGPT made it a real commodity when you could do PLC coding. We said, what's next? And so we started 3 new horizontal initiatives within Robusys in 2019. One was industrial networking. So we recognized the cybersecurity lockdowns and things that people want to do there. The second was MES, manufacturing execution system. So we started a whole division that just does those implementations. And then the third one was my division, which is industrial AI. Again, this is 2019, over 6 years ago. So we were wondering at the time, are we early to the game? It turned out we weren't. So we actually had real AI projects in implementation on the plant floor by the time November of 2022 came around and ChatGPT launched. And then, of course, phone was bringing off the hook because now everyone wanted to be talking about industrial AI. And so that tends to get me the meeting. And then I typically pivot pretty quickly. And I go, okay, yeah, generative AI is exciting. Very cool. It's very new. And there's some risks in terms of implementing it on the plant floor. So let's maybe pivot and talk about some of the existing AI that's been around for quite a while. Those types of projects we can do today on the plant floor. And let's keep a close eye on generative AI. But these are problems where they've really been unsolved problems within the plant. These are not things that in the past they had solutions for. So they would just throw bodies at it, or they would just live with the loss of throughput and quality and performance. And so, in a lot of cases, we're implementing those AI projects to actually take on some of these really interesting and hard problems. And the reality of it is too, besides changing the mindset of what working in a factory is, which is, it's great that you're doing that. I'm excited about that. But the reality of it is that the US workforce to really move into the manufacturing sector like we'd like to, right? So I think that part of it is the realization and kind of the acceptance of here's what the generational difference looks like. And so getting to a level of automation and AI and robotics where you can deal with the fact that you're going to have high turnover in these positions. You can deal with the fact that you're going to have to get someone up to speed very quickly. You're not going to have weeks of training anymore to get an operator up to speed and still get good quality, still get good production out of that person. So that's part of this transformation in the United States. The good news is that with this reshoring, we really have that opportunity, right? We have empty factories that we could go in and really kind of rethink everything that we've assumed about what a factory can and should look like. And we have this opportunity now to remake some of these factory towns with a modern AI-empowered factory. And that's what I'm kind of excited about. That's ways off, but that's what I think we're working towards right now.
Do you think that's the biggest misconception about reshoring is? And what is the biggest misunderstanding people have about what industrial AI actually is?
Okay, two different questions there. So
Yeah.
I think that from the reshoring standpoint, I think that's the only way in my mind that it can be successful. Because if it's just restarting up, people think of as these plants, and a lot of these plants are shuttered, so it's not like you're going to even restart it, right? So you have the opportunity now to rethink the whole approach to what a plant should look like. And I've been in modern plants that have been built in the last 10 years, and they don't look like a lot of those 100-year-old plants look like. It's not like we're figuring all this out. I think we know what a modern plant can look like. And so I think that's the opportunity that reshoring gives us. As far as misconceptions about industrial AI, I see everything. I see the whole spectrum. I see folks, I come in and they're like, is this Skynet? I'm like, it's not Skynet. You don't need to worry about
Classic.
that. We're so far from that. Even all these, AGI has always been 10 years away. It's kind of like nuclear fusion. It's always 10 years away. Like, I don't honestly don't think we're that much closer to AGI than we were. We're not artificial general intelligence like human level or surpassing human level. I honestly don't
Right.
think that close to it. So it's not Skynet. The other end where people underestimate the capabilities of AI too, right? And it's just very capable in a very narrow focus. Can it outperform an operator? It absolutely can outperform an operator on a very, on a specific task, but you move it just slightly to the right to a different task and it'll perform like a toddler. It's the whole spectrum of assumptions around that we typically have to fight through. And then because of the generative AI, that actually has muddied the waters a lot. So now we're having to answer a lot of questions about, are you using stuff to train other models? It's like, no, we're not even using LLMs. So no, this is a whole different thing. It's breaking through all of that.
Yeah, and then what are your thoughts? People saying that AI and robots are replacing people on the floor. Certainly, I have my ideas, and I've talked to many other
Yeah.
people about it. What do you say to people's worry about that?
It's the number one question I get. Are you putting people out of work? And the answer is no. And as you know, we have a shortfall in labor in the
Hmm.
manufacturing sector. The last numbers I saw, which I think are a couple of years old now, were about a 500,000 person shortfall in the United States on labor. They can't find enough people. My clients can't find enough people. The problem they're having is that they don't have enough people, and that's why they're looking to automation and AI. One of the advantages that different countries have over us is they can just throw people at the problem. They have people who are willing to take these jobs, so they'll just throw armies of people at it. We don't have that in the United States, so we have to be clever. We have to leverage technology to hit those production goals that we have. So no, we're not putting people out. I've been doing this for a long time. I've never seen any of these projects lead to a labor reduction. What it does lead to, though, is oftentimes labor reallocation, right? Moving people into higher value tasks within the organization. A lot of these roles, can be kind of repetitive, kind of unsafe in some cases. So we want to make sure that we're moving people out of those roles and into higher value and let the robots and let the AI do those tasks that people don't really want to do anyway.
Right. Going back to how you solve stuff for companies, right? When you help a company build an OT or an operational technology, like data strategy, what are some key ingredients that help make that work?
And it's interesting because it's evolved over the years. So we've been doing this for a long time, and it still starts with capturing that data on the plant floor, right? And so while a lot of companies kind of got religion in the early 2000s about putting in historians and capturing that data, there's still a lot of customers that I walk into that don't really have any strategy around capturing that data as it happens on the plant floor. So first and foremost, if they don't have that, I typically have to pivot. I'm like, okay, first and foremost, we got to do what I would call an AI readiness project and start capturing that data on the plant floor. And then the next step, and this is where things have started to evolve, is in that IT, OT, or IT plant level interface point, moving that data up at an enterprise level. So now we're not talking about just a single site, but now we're talking about correlating all that data across a lot of sites and mixing in data from traditionally IT data sources. So things like your SAP or ERP system, think things like your warehousing system, your supply chain, because when we're looking to answer some very complicated problems on the plant floor, AI is not going to be able to do that if it doesn't have all that data available to it.
Hmm.
And it needs to be clean and it needs to be correlated. And none of that describes the current world that we live in today, where everything's very isolated, the data's dirty, there's gaps in the data. And so we've got to build those, what I call the golden data sets, to then be able to build those AI insights, those ML models. So that also oftentimes includes the cloud. So that would be my third point then, is you need to be thinking about your cloud strategy. And most companies are, but I still run into manufacturers who have not really thought hard about what their cloud strategy is going to be. Cloud's going to play a role in this. When you talk about the volumes of data that we're talking about, and when you talk about the compute that we're going to need to be able to build these ML models, I've not seen an on-premise data center that has that kind of bandwidth. So you need to be thinking about the cloud. It's the most efficient and cost-effective way. We can address your security concerns, been addressed about a decade ago. This is not something, and the other funny thing is that and I get it, but there are customers who will have pushback around the security concerns there, but they may not even realize they're running Microsoft 365, which is 100% cloud-based, or Google Workspace, which is 100% cloud-based. So, all your data is in the cloud, all your emails, all your recipes, everything's in the cloud already. Those three things in particular, I think, are the things to focus on if you're just now starting to get started on this and you don't really know what the next steps are. That's where I typically start.
Can you explain a specific instance where AI completely changed how a company operated? Kind of a success story?
Oh, yeah. We had a company so they make drywall. They had a data science team, a small data science team, and they had started to do some work and some initial experimentation. And they had determined that they could find a correlation between visual factors in the drywall as it's drying and what the final quality of the drywall was going to be. This was novel insights that, wasn't like published or something. This was insights that they had come up with. And so they partnered with us and they said, well, so we've got these ML models, preliminary ML models, and they seem to be predictive. We can predict what the final quality is, but we have no idea how to actually operationalize this on a plant floor. And we hear that a lot, even with customers that have made investments in having a data science team. They know how to get good results with data. They don't have any idea how to operationalize it on the plant floor. And that's one of the reasons why Rovisys moved into this, is because we saw that, as we heard that over and over again from customers. And we're like, well, we know how to operationalize technology on the plant floor. We've been doing it for 36 years. So we worked with them and actually then built a system, improved their models, leveraged their models on the plant floor. We built a vision system. It actually looks down and uses their proprietary ML models to then predict what the final quality is. You want to talk about a revolution. So that was the current state of the art in the drywall industry is that you make those sheets and you're making them very fast. They start to dry. An operator comes up and they cut out a portion of the sheet. It's a destructive test, and they write on it, here's the batch, send it to the lab. And then depending on the loading of the lab, it could be 2 to 6 hours before they get back results on whether or not they were making garbage this entire time. And so all this time they're making sheets as the lab results are being tested, and they could come back and realize they just made all that as scrapped, all those hours of production. With this AI-based system, they have near real-time feedback. Within minutes, they're able to make adjustments to the process to get back to making on-spec sheets based on that prediction of what the final quality is going to be. So, again, the ROI is massive. And that's why, and we can get into this on the podcast, but, people ask me about ROI. It's really actually not that hard to find. The smaller projects we do, which we can get into it on the podcast, but we have what are called traditional AI projects, which would be computer vision and other things, predictive quality, predictive set point. We don't really take on those projects if we're not confident that we can get back the ROI in at least a year, if not less. Projects, you're typically looking at 100 to 200K of ROI annually. For the bigger projects we do, which are the autonomous AI, those are the more complicated projects, but way more capable. We're looking for $750 to $1 million of ROI every year. We're not going to do the project if we don't feel confident in that. The craziest stories come out of our implementation. I talked about those autonomous AI projects, right? And so those are really the future, forward-looking projects. Autonomous AI is built on deep reinforcement learning, which came out about a decade ago. Deep reinforcement learning has the ability to actually understand causal connections, to reason out of situations and figure out a strategy for moving forward. Those autonomous AI projects, those are the real fun ones. We have a success story there we did with a glass bottle manufacturer where they could not control this process well. It took an expert operator to get consistent good bottles out of this process, and we were able to train an autonomous AI agent. That autonomous AI agent was able to get back to making on-spec bottles 50% faster than even their best experts. Our agent has never taken longer than 5 minutes and typically takes about 2 minutes.
Right. Yeah, that's cool to work on something.
Sounds good. Thanks, Justin. I appreciate it.
Yeah, thank you. We'll talk soon.
Talk to you later. Bye.